Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where it's about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the series premiere of Brea, a great series premiere. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. I'll say, it's actually interesting because I know that the first 5 minutes of this show was actually released well before the premiere. Because I got an ad for it on YouTube, and I didn't skip the ad. I just tried not to watch anything but I caught a glimpse of it, and I saw the sinkhole thing happen. I'm like, wow, that happens within the first 5 minutes. It's like boom, boom, boom. Because it's still crazy to be fair, this premiere in general, there's just so much getting compacted into this one premiere. Because it's usually there'll be some build up. You get a little background about Josh, Izzy, and Eve. Obviously, everything with Gavin, the complicated family circumstances, they're kind of living in separate areas. Josh, you can immediately find, you get he's not too forgiving about his dad. Izzy is. The sinkhole opens up. Josh fell behind because he was helping up a little girl, and then he fell down, and just seeing everything collapse is wild. When you get to see because it's hard to even measure how massive it is. It's oh man, that looks huge, but just that's from the sky view, from the ground view, it got to be insane to look across the gap, just seeing how massive that is. It's holy crap. So obviously for everyone, it's because the sad thing is Eve sacrificed herself, which side note, Eve played by Natalie Zia, which most recently I saw in The Unicorn. On CBS, obviously, I think the first thing I ever saw her in was Justified, which I still need to go back and watch Justified. I have no excuse. There's plenty of opportunities to watch it. I need to just set aside some time and binge the entirety of Justified. It's been a while, and I never regardless of tangents and all that aside. So she sacrificed herself because she knew if my daughter, if Izzy keeps holding on to me, she's gonna fall too. So she's you gotta run. I love you, and pushes her hand off of her and falls. And obviously at the same time, Gavin, we find out he's having these visions. So it's okay, so basically his plane crashed when he was in the Air Force, and he's basically been seeing stuff because he kind of suffered a concussion, and he wants a job because basically he wants a job nearby so he can kind of be there, because he's trying to repair things with his family. Things are complicated. Because obviously what's going on between Eve and Gavin obviously is having an effect, because even Izzy and Josh are divided on that approach to it. Josh is nah, Dad doesn't deserve another chance. Izzy's Dad does deserve another chance. So, and it's a lot for Eve, because Eve, we end up finding out, has guilt over, she was late picking up her daughter. She sent someone else to get her, and that's led to eventually we didn't get to the context of it, but there was an accident, and that's how Izzy lost her leg. So her mom blames herself for that. So, because I think that's why she rushed over. That's why when Josh, obviously any mother is going to be oh my God, my son, I think he died when Josh fell. But I think it also stems from the fact is that everything with Izzy, I think it's just it just shows she feels she already failed one child, and it's just she feels she's failing as a mom, I think, on some level, because she's which later on she gets the advice of there are just things that life just happens, you can't control everything. But obviously this is all spiraling and happening at once. Gavin shows up at the scene to check on Izzy the moment he sees the reports and gets a call from Izzy about what's going on. And we find out immediately that the government is covering up what happened. They're trying to say the sinkhole, whoever's down there die, but they're lying, because Adam and Dr. Nathan are talking about it. What's happening here in Brea happened in the Mojave Desert. Now, what we know is that Gavin crashed in the desert. Now, the question is, his visions, we ultimately end up finding out, are tied to this. At first, I'm okay, how are you tied to this? But the moment they reference the Mojave Desert, and they reference that his plane crashed, the Air Force person, reference his plane crash. So I'm did he actually go to that place and somehow came back? Maybe he has some connection to the Mojave Desert, or maybe he had some crash course with that world, some collision or something that maybe he's just not quite remembering. But he's seeing all this stuff before, because all those giant birds came out, because I was whoa, is this him imagining it? But it's no, the way other people are reacting, they're seeing the giant birds too, and it's what's going on? And so for Gavin, he's seeing these visions because he sees what Eve is going through. The fact is, when she woke up, which will get to everything, but she ran into Josh and everything, so he's seeing all of that, and he's trying to explain it to Izzy, but Izzy's just like, whatever you're seeing isn't real, but for him, it's like, no, this is different, like, it feels different. So, understandably, like, the government doesn't have answers for everything that's going down, so obviously you don't want to tell people the truth because you're going to freak out, because it's not just the bottomless pit, there's a tear, and I guess I guess we can now say, like, a tear in the very fabric of time and space, because that's the thing of, like, all the machines and stuff like that were destroyed from the fall, but the people weren't. Now, part of me is wondering, like, what happened, because like, your mind is immediately racing, like, okay, what's going on, what's happening, like, where are they? Eve runs into the guy she eventually later on knows his name is Ty, and he was saying, like, are you real? And part of me was like, well, because Ty later on says that he's a therapist, so part of me's like, I was at first wondering, like, is he someone that knows Gavin? Like, because I'm still stuck on the thought that Gavin landed here all that time ago and he just doesn't remember, and like somehow got out, and the moment he got out he returned to the world, and it just seems, and he's ever since then, like, crossing that barrier into that lane of things, like it somehow did something to his mind. Maybe the crash like attuned his mind to, like, so that means, like, the things he's been seeing for the past 3 years have been leading up to this, as he's kind of saying later on. So to everyone, he just sounds crazy, especially to Jessica, which I'm assuming is his sister. It might be Eve's, but I'm assuming it's his sister. But for Izzy, it's just kind of like, she has to accept, she's like, no, they're gone, Dad, you're crazy, because it's like, Josh, no matter what happened, like, would constantly say, like, you're not worth it, but I believe that, I know your drinking was only because you were in so much pain, and so for her, she just feels like her dad's, like, in denial, because she's like, I knew when the time came that you would always be there for her. Sadly, in the moment, like, they did need him, he wasn't there, I mean, it's like, I think the argument could be like, I think maybe in Izzy's mind too, it's like, right, you could have actually been there if our family, like, if your issues hadn't kind of taken over, and you were trying to, like, we could have been together as a family, so this could have all been avoided, like, we wouldn't have been in that area, we would have still been living with you, all together as a happy family, I think that's what that kind of stems from, but obviously, going back, well, when Nathan does confront, when Dr. Nathan and Adam get confronted, which immediately my brain is like, oh, there's an Adam working for the government, and then, like, the main person we're kind of seeing everything through is Eve. So Adam and Eve, interesting. But regardless, the fact is that when Gavin confronted them and brought up, like, oh, that drone, it's this specific serial number on it, and it's like, how the hell does he know that? We got to look into him. But like I said, I think it has to deal with, like, maybe it's not even the Mojave Desert that he landed in. Maybe, because I don't remember. I feel like they reference he landed in the desert. His plane crashed in a desert, but maybe I'm wrong. But maybe when his plane crashed, he, like, connected with something from that. Like, maybe because the Mojave Desert's the only other place they have a reference to, but maybe there's been ties to this in other places that just haven't been discovered yet. Like, maybe when his plane crashed, he absorbed some energy that's connected to, like, the teleporting everyone in La Brea or whatever, like, the full scope of the Mojave Desert incident was. Like, maybe there was something there. Because when we saw the handprint on the rock beside Eve when she woke up, I assumed, I was like, oh, could that be from when Gavin was there and he just doesn't remember? It's like, no, like, that handprint thing is a whole other thing, which we'll get to. Because I think it is an important thing to note that where did it start in La Brea? It started in the tar pit. So that's, I think, a very important, like, detail and everything to kind of keep in mind. But everyone's gathered together, and it's like, with the state of everything, because you're like, okay, you're getting some Lost vibes here. Which even you had Scott, the dude that was, like, laughing. I was like, he sounds a little crazy, but it's like, oh, because he's high as a kite right now. But it's like, he was like, yeah, it feels like we're in an episode of Lost. Which, yes, there's that. But with the nature of everything, like, the moment they, like, the birds and the wolves, I was like, is this actually going to be a little bit closer to, like, Cage of Eden, which, if you've never heard of Cage of Eden, it's a great manga that I reference all the time. Basically, it's like Lost, but like some changes. Like, it's people were on a plane and it crashed on a mysterious island. The difference is, like, where Lost is, like, most of the cast are adults, this manga is about mainly, like, 18-year-olds or, like, seniors in high school. So most of the cast are like kids, but when they land on its island, it's basically filled with dinosaurs. And that's kind of what La Brea is. This whole series, it's kind of leaning into that. So I was like, oh man, they landed in a place where like dinosaurs are alive and stuff like that. I didn't expect this story to be what it is. I'm going to go jump ahead to it. It's like, it's a time travel story. I didn't expect that. I was like, that's wild. The moment they start doing all that, and then I start piecing it together of like, he saw the rock. I was like, that's not making any sense to me. And then he goes, finds the rock because he remembered like him and Eve took a picture near it. And I'm like, what is that going to prove? And he goes there digging. I thought he was actually going to dig because he was like, oh, the sign. I was like, you're going to dig from the sign. I was like, oh my God. I was like, they time traveled. I was like, to sit like millions of years in the past. I was like, they're still in La Brea. They're still in California, Los Angeles, but they're just millions of years in the past. And I was like, we're going to see mammoths and potentially dinosaurs. And later on, they literally run into a saber-toothed tiger. I was like, that's it. That's definitely it. Especially because we find out that marking is from like, I don't know if Neolithic would be like the proper terminology. But it's like, it seems like it might be from a Neolithic tribe because like we see someone later on wearing the, like has a fur coat and they have that marking on their back. It's like, it's their tribe's like signs. So we're getting a little bit of like Lost, but more so in my mind, Cage of Eden meets like the 100, like how, it was, you know, the 100 versus the grounders, the quote unquote grounders in the beginning of that series. So I'm thinking something of that vein of like, we're getting a little bit of that because they're going to meet these like prehistoric tribes. But yeah, the moment that happened, I literally jumped out. I was like, I freaking knew it, dude. I went into this knowing nothing. I don't even know what their details out like before the show came out. Because the one trailer I saw was like literally 30 seconds. I'm kind of glad they told me nothing because I was sitting there like, it's freaking time travel. They traveled in the past, like they're in the same location. But part of me was wondering, is that why the machines are messed up? Because like going through it, it messes with inorganic stuff, but maybe organic stuff stays kind of the same. Like, I don't know, because like the food and water and stuff like that, like, that seemed fine, but it's like specifically the machinery, like seemed like it got damaged from the fall, but none of them did. So it's like, why was that? But, yeah, just circling back to it though, like the gathering of supplies and everything, which I love, like, it's like, right, we get introduced, like I said, we got introduced to Scott, Riley, her dad, obviously Josh and, Eve. There's the cop lady, which I think is interesting. She's always showing herself to be a little shady. It's like, we just landed here and she's already being like, because like Josh calls her out for stashing like nutrition bars. It's like, lady, we've just been here a minute, you're already hoarding stuff. It's like, we ain't even got to the point of like, oh, it's dire survive. Like, to be fair, like the 100 kind of jumped on that super quickly of just kind of like, yeah, let's do whatever we want. Let's kind of go buck while we're the only ones down here. They found out quickly they weren't. I'm sure this La Brea squad, well, they found out in their own right where they get attacked by wolves. So we'll get to that in a second. But I'm like, lady, you just landed here. Everyone's supposed to be working together. You're already hoarding. Like, what? She's like, it's like no one else is stealing. She's like, just give it a minute. Because she's super pessimistic. I guess that's what it is. Where she's like looking out for herself because she's like, yeah, that's human nature. Like, but part of me, like, because Riley and Scott found heroin, which I'm like, my mind is like, well, she already showed herself to be a little shady. So is she going to end up being like, either she is a cop, but she's a dirty cop and that's her car, or we're going to find out that that's, that she's not a cop and she just took the badge. One of the two. Might even be Ty's. Because like I said, I thought Ty was someone from before La Brea, but maybe he is. Like, it feels like he knows more than he's kind of letting on, like, or at least like he's hiding something. So part of me is like, could that heroin actually be his? Like, was he actually mixed up in some like bad dealings and that car is actually his? I mean, he like, cause we're not questioning why, because he even admitted like, oh, I'm a therapist. It's like, then why the hell do you have a gun on you? Like, we didn't get to questioning that. So, but yeah, the wolves came out and attacked everybody. Josh got messed up. It's crazy that even in the middle of my mind, I'm like, yeah, there's no like werewolf stuff going on. It's like, nah, stop being stupid. It's like, no, he just got attacked by a wolf. That one family, their dad tried to fight it off and got killed. Like, if this was any other thing, if this was Cage of Eden, like I've said, like, side note, like, I keep referencing because it's a manga. I've talked about this before. It's a manga I remember years ago on Crunchyroll forums being like, I wish this got an anime adaptation because it's so damn good. It's like I said, it's like Lost, except it's super bloody. Like, you saw people get ripped apart by dinosaurs. It's actually super brutal. Like, this cut away from it, but like if this was on any other network, you would have seen that dude basically get his jugular ripped out by that wolf before it dragged him away. So, I mean, he might be alive, but it, like, the way the angle looked before they cut away, it looked like it went for the jugular. So he's probably super dead and got dragged away. Luckily, Ty ended up shooting that wolf, and so Riley's dad is he used to be a SEAL, so that's why he's kind of immediately able to comprehend, like, not comprehend the situation, but immediately jump on it. Now he's also a surgeon, so he's a doctor, so he's looking after Josh, but they were able to get the supplies needed to kind of patch him up for now, but he still needs antibiotics, and he needs sutures to, like, you know, and you'll be able to kind of, like, close up the wound to stop the bleeding and stuff, so, Eve saw an ambulance when she came here, but she's going to need to go find it. So Riley's dad offers to help too, which I think that's also why, like, Riley kind of has a little bit of, like, because she ends up bringing up, because he's like, right, you've been going to medical school or whatever, like, you'll be able to handle it. She's like, no, I haven't. He's like, what? She's like, I dropped out. He's like, since when? She's like, since the beginning. Is this really the time to be, like, bringing that up though? And so I guess it's a situation of, like, her dad is who he is, you know, whether it's like being a SEAL, whether it's being a surgeon, it's always about helping people. And I'm sure that probably leads to some resentment where it's like, right, you always kind of choose helping other people. Like, you were more there for other people than you were for me. And like, probably the high expectations of like, right, I got to live up to like some great standard you've set for yourself and others. But like, it's like, yeah, I'll leave you in charge of everything. I got to help people. And she's like, yeah, you go do what you do. Like, she said it with a little like sarcasm to it, so it's like, I think there is some level of resentment towards her dad, because it's like, I will always kind of come second, sadly. So I did like that Scott did try to make it up to Riley by being like, yeah, here's some music, yeah, like, it was my natural instinct, like, I froze, like, you know, those big wolves and everything, like, anyone would freak out, but even he acknowledged, like, right, if something had died, if you had died, it would have been on me. And she's like, yeah, it would have. So he wouldn't try to make up for it. So, right, you get some rest, I'll watch over Josh for you, you know? So you also had the cop lady fire a flare gun into the air, which I was like, that's bad. I mean, we saw like that because that's something like, I'm trying to like, like I said, Neolithic might be the right word. I don't want to just say cave person or primitive, but you know, that tribes person, like, we saw them like see it in the sky, but I was like, that's probably also going to attract plenty of other predators that are probably going to be looking in that direction. Like, the wolves already came, like, who's to say what else is going to come? Like I said, I'm wondering, are we going to go full-blown Cage of Eden, where it's like, straight up, we are going to see, like, dinosaurs? Because I thought, like, in a preview, you could see, like, a pterodactyl or something in the air, and I just wasn't quite sure, but now it's like, yeah. So I'm wondering, like, will we see full-blown dinosaurs in this or not? Will they run into other people, like I said, like the Mojave thing? Like, could there have been people involved in the Mojave situation that are here as well? Like, I mean, obviously, it's like you got a large setup to have to get across in this premiere. So, like, it's probably not going to be till the next episode that we really get to spend more time with everything else and everyone else kind of involved. But, like, we get, like, little peeks into certain people's situations, but not the full enough scope. Gavin hasn't figured out what's going on, but his digging, he didn't find the sign, but he found Eve's ring, the one she wears as a necklace. So it seems like, hey, I might not be crazy, but once again, what the full explanation for why he's connected to this, I've thrown out my theories. We'll see what ends up being the case. But even they've kind of figured out, like, oh yeah, one of those birds that came out of the pit, Dr. Nathan and Adam are looking at it, and it's like, yep, this thing is an extinct species. So it's like, okay. So, because I was wondering, like, whether it was just kind of like, oh, they landed in a mysterious world, or maybe it's like a, like, whatever, like, because even Scott was like, yeah, if we fell to the Earth, we'd be, like, in the center of the Earth, but, like, we're here or something. Once again, like, he was referencing Lost and stuff like that, but it's like, yeah, you basically time travel to millions of years ago. Like I said, like, it was a literal crack into space-time continuum, I guess. But even on the other side of things, like, Eve pointed out to Riley's dad, as well as tied it, like, look, like, those are like the Hollywood Hills. Like you see it from this fire, that you see it like here on the side, and it's like, look, that's them. Like we are still in Los Angeles. It's like, but how? Like what's going on? And then proceed to be, like I said earlier, get attacked by a saber-toothed tiger. So a lot, like I said, a lot kind of getting thrown at you because it's like we got to be like get the premise of this across of like right. But I'm really excited to see like where everything kind of goes from here. It's one of those shows opening with a ton of questions, potentially sprinkling in some answers, but trying to figure out the grand scheme of like how this is happening, why did it happen, what happened in the Mojave situation or circumstance. Like, did that close? Is that still open and being investigated? Like, did it close in the Mojave and now it opened up here in La Brea, or did it is it still, like I said, was it still open there? Like, are there little pockets of this, like, opening up all over the world so you get people from all over the world, not just La Brea, getting, like, landing in this place, you know? I'm curious to see how they end up handling this. Because I'll even reference, like, once again, I won't shut up about it, but Keijo Eden, I don't even know how it ends. Like, because I don't know what the resolution to that was, like, finding out how that was all happening. Because I read a good chunk of it, but it was like years ago, so I don't even know how it ends. I don't want to know how it ends. I don't like want anyone who comes across it accidentally spoiling anything. It's just like I've never read it or anything, but it's just like this heavily reminded me of that. That's why I kind of kept going on the tangent about it. But like I said, I am very, very interested to see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.